Roadworker here at Gen Con 2018, and we're here in the event hall with Justin Gary of Stoneblade Entertainment because right now there is a new Ascension expansion out and currently a tournament happening right behind us.
Yes, that's right. The 2018 World Championships for Ascension are going on right behind us. We have 2 former world champions that are in the top 8, as well as 3 of the other competitors have been in a top 8 before but have never taken the title.
All right, and what's this new expansion they're playing with?
So the new expansion is called Delirium, and it's actually really exciting for us because we were able to come back to an old mechanic that people really love and then deliver it in a completely new way. So I'll dig into that a little bit more for you.
Yeah, and for me, in any kinds of card games, I always hate it when there is a good mechanic that sort of just disappears into the past. So coming back always to me is a great sign of really making sure that the card game continues to live and sort of can mix with itself, as well as people get to see a new twist on something old.
Exactly, and and one of the things that is really important when you're designing games that last a long time, we launched this game 8 years ago at Gen Con. This is our 13th expansion. You can't keep all the mechanics all the time because it's just going to get too cumbersome. New players would never be able to play. So we rotate mechanics, right? But the ones that people love, we bring them back, and because it wouldn't be fun if we brought them back exactly the same, we got to switch it up a little bit.
And did you think about tournament play when you were actually making this new expansion?
Yeah, we always do. I mean, because Ascension, number one is that it's got to be fun, right? It's got to be fun for hanging out around the kitchen table and playing with friends and family. But I come from a competitive Magic background, right? I was a U.S. national champion, a Pro Tour champion in Magic. I love good competitive play. So every single one of our games has that competitive development, that high-end instinct, and this one is no exception.
So does that Magic background to help you fuel a lot of your design decisions and think about how would I view this, and if I was in a tournament scene, maybe I would be like, this would be great in this kind of scenario?
100%. I mean, it cannot help but inform all of my designs. And basically what Ascension, when I first came up with the idea, it was basically I was taking the deck building concept from Dominion and the drafting concept from Magic, right? That it was this idea that you had a small selection of cards and you would pick the one that you needed out of those, and that would influence what cards were available for everybody else. That came straight from Magic. And so a lot of that instinct is just bred into me. It's just part of who I am. So it's always a part of my thinking.
Right. As someone who played Magic, not competitively because I was bad, so I guess technically, but in the worst spot on scale, that I do enjoy that kind of stuff in building the deck because it also does mean that you have to change with what comes up when you do a draft in Magic.
Exactly. That's what makes every game unique. When I played Dominion and I loved it, and I played it a lot. But then once I played, several dozen games, I got bored of it because it ended up being the same experience over and over. Once I saw the opening board, it didn't change.
Right.
And so Ascension solved that problem by having an ever-changing center row where, like you said, you have to react to what shows up, you have to react to what your opponents are doing, and so that creates it so that you can play a million times, as many people do on the app. I actually see how many times people play, and that really makes a big impact, and that's, I think, part of why the game has been so successful for so long.
And how's this expansion been doing in the tournament? Because I'm sure you're watching and seeing how players take it.
Well, let me tell you a little about the mechanics. And then I'll throw you in, because it's really interesting. So what I have here, I'll bring these up for cameras. So these are insight tokens, right? Ooh. These were from the previous expansion, and these are actually in Dreamscape. They were used to buy a separate set of dream cards that you had available and nobody else did. We brought back insight, but instead of buying cards that are separate, we're rolling a die.
Oh.
Yes. So we made an awesome custom die. You pay 5 insight to roll the die, and then you get whatever resource you roll. So you could be 3 runes, could be 4 power, drawing 2 cards, banishing a card, gaining 5 honor directly, or gaining 6 insight, which means you get to roll again with a bonus insight. So this is something that's like a really powerful tool for us. And what I love about it, and especially what I love about seeing it in this tournament, is a lot of people, I bet you people at home right now are having one of 2 reactions. Either they're like, woohoo, a die, that's awesome. Or they're like, oh no, that's too random. I don't know, man, I'm not sure it's going to be okay. And so we purposely, I've actually wanted to put a die into Ascension for the last 5 years, but I couldn't find a good way to do it.
Of course.
And the insight mechanic was the key, because insight is a resource that gets stored from turn to turn. So it's actually very strategic when you want to use it, right? It's not just use it or lose it like most resources in deck building games. And so deciding when's the right time to roll the die is really critical, and it's actually very high strategy. And so that bit of randomness combined with a lot of strategy is really at the core of what Ascension is. And if anybody has any doubt that it's strategic play that gets you here, we had a sold-out World Championships event, and it's 2 world champions, a bunch of the top 8s. The same people keep showing up at the top 8. And that shows you where the skill comes in, even if it feels random like a die.
Right, but definitely probably puts them on edge because one roll could really change their strategy completely.
Yeah, same is true with one card flip off the top. It's the right card or the wrong card can completely change everything. The right roll, the wrong roll, and that's the fun, right? I mean, I like playing chess, kinda, but if the better player is going to win 100% of the time. The games play out very similarly a lot of the time, and it's that randomness that comes from cards, that comes from dice, that makes like so many of the games we all love come to life. And yeah, sometimes it goes badly for you and it hurts. And sometimes it goes well for you and you like get super excited. And it's that combination of like strategically positioning yourself so probability is more likely to favor you. That's how I won Magic tournaments. It's how these players are winning their tournaments. And it's the fun of play that anybody can win, but you could try to make it more likely that you're going to win.
And that's where the really fun strategy comes from. And I'm a little curious from designing, because usually, for example, Magic, when I see cards come out, I just see them. But when watching this, is there a card that you're like, I didn't expect people to react with that card that way? Or like anything that sort of popped out of nowhere, becoming either popular or not as popular?
Well, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you one card here. I don't know how well the camera can pick this up, but this is actually Glover. You can see him right there. He's our world champion. That's the reigning world champion. He got made into a card that got included in this set.
Oh, that's always
that's the big first prize of getting there. In addition to a giant wad of cash that I'm going to hand. Of course. But this guy actually will let you take all the insight from another player and take a random card from their hand.
Oh, okay.
So in the very first set of Ascension, we had a card called Xeron, Duke of Lies, which was the card that took a card at random out of other people's hands. And for the most part with Ascension, I actually tried to design it so there's not that much like take that kind of stuff, right? It's not a lot of direct player attacking. And that was a single copy of one card that was a direct player attacking card, and people really responded strongly to it. Sometimes negatively, but like some people love it. And so
depends on which end you're on.
Exactly, and the passion around that type of mechanic is a really powerful thing that I didn't necessarily know how players were going to react. And in fact, it's one of the things that motivated me when I designed Shards of Infinity, which we'll talk about later, which is a new deck building game where you actually do attack players directly and you mess with people all the time. And so it's that balance of the different player instincts and do I feel safe or do I feel threatened and can I hurt you and how do I react is all like part of the fun.
Right, and in addition, because it's a deck building, you can see if someone bought that card and when it got into the deck, so then maybe you will become more scared, especially when something like you just said steals insight, so you may be like, maybe I do want to spend it to...
Right, when you see that card show up in the center row, it changes your play patterns, because if you're smart, you're spending your insight as much as possible. So for example, I talked about how you can spend 5 insight to get to roll the die, but you can also use insight in other ways. So there's some cards that have a fate auction mechanic, which means you can bid insight to try to get the effect on the card when it shows up in the center row. So that's another way to use your insight, as well as there are cards that have ability called recur, where basically the card has an effect, and then if you pay its recur cost and insight, you double the effect. And so there's a lot of ways to spend it. So if you see Glover's card show up, you should be emptying your insight pool, because in the case your opponent beats it, you don't want to get taken for too much.
Right, exactly. Which is definitely another reason what makes this fun with the cycling of the deck instead of the standard block deck.
Exactly.
But I mean, as much as I love Ascension deck building game, as you said, you have another expansion come out for a new game you made just recently.
I do, and we can go see that one right over here.
All right. So Ascension, as you said, has been out for quite some time. Many expansions, but Shards of Infinity, this is quite new.
Brand new. We just released this earlier this year in April, and we even sold through our entire first print run. We sold through our second print run. We have another one that's going to show up. We basically have the last copy pretty much here in front of you that we're going to be, and there'll be some more in September.
All right, so show us how. Let's quickly learn how this works.
So I'm going to go through the basics with you. I'll assume most of the audience already knows Ascension, so there's a lot of things that are similar. You have a 6-card center row, you have a 10-card starting deck, and then we have a lot of cool twists. So instead of Ascension where you're attacking monsters and you're earning honor, here you're attacking the other players. So every player starts with one of these cool character cards, and it starts at 50 health. If you can knock somebody down to 0 health, they are dead. You're the last person alive, you win. Now you'll notice there's another tracker here. This is what's called Mastery, and this is actually one of the innovative mechanics in the game. When each turn, you'll notice there's no mystics or heavy infantry, there's no side piles of any kind. I got rid of all of that, and instead, in addition to buying cards from the center, you can always pay 1 gem, which is like our money resource, like runes, right? You can pay 1 gem to increase your Mastery by 1. Okay, and what Mastery does is it makes all your cards better. It's kind of like leveling up. So, for example, even some of your starting cards, like this Shard Reactor here, when you first play it, it gives you 2 gems. But if you have 5 mastery when you play it, it gives you 3. If you have 15 mastery when you play it, it gives you 4. Right? So even your starting cards become good. Now, this also paces the game out. Now, the story of the game, Shards of Infinity, it's based on, there's this weapon of ultimate power called the Infinity Engine.
Of course.
Of course. Why would you be without a weapon?
What's a world without an ultimate weapon?
Exactly. And you're one of the few people who has one of the shards, one of the remaining pieces of that engine, and you're trying to rebuild it and master it. So this starting card that everybody has, the Infinity Shard, starts off, it only does 2 damage, right? I could do 2 and you go down from 50 to 48. But if I can get all the way to 30 mastery, draw and play this card, it does infinite damage.
Fantastic.
Yes. So that's one of the ways you can win the game, or of course you could just beat people down. So that's like a really big, cool innovation of the game. In addition, champions, they work like constructs. They stay in front of you, but they have a health rating, so they can be attacked. If there's cards called mercenaries, which have this red circle around them, they can be bought like normal cards, or they can be fast played, which means you pay the cost, you get the effect right away, and then the card goes on the bottom of the center deck instead of in your deck. So it's like a now or later kind of trade-off. And finally, there's shield cards. So there's some other deck building games which I really like Star Realms and Hero Realms, where you have like bases and things that protect you and
a wall in essence.
Right, the wall, exactly. But sometimes that becomes really frustrating, right? Like either somebody has an impenetrable wall and the game's never going to end, or you don't have anything and you're doomed. Here, you have shield cards in your hand. And if you attack me while I have a shield card in my hand, I can reveal it to prevent that much damage. So if you attack me for 10, I had this in my hand, I could prevent 8 of it, I'd only take 2. And the nice thing about that is, 1, you never exactly know how much shield somebody has because they're hidden. 2, you get to keep the card in your hand, so you don't even lose it. It's just kind of a bonus when you're protecting yourself. And it makes it so that you can protect yourself, but it's not a guarantee. You don't get to build the impenetrable fortress.
Right.
So because of that, and because of the Infinity Shard, the game will definitely end. So we kept it fast-paced.
So I'm guessing 8 block can't block Infinity.
The 8 block cannot block Infinity. There's no blocking
can't just
Infinity.
Twist that sideways.
Yes, that's right. It's not going to stop Infinity.
But that is really cool because it's not like when you think of a lot of card games, there's the common cards are usually weaker, quicker than those cards. Everything in essence has the ability to become the big card.
Right. There's a lot of cards that become very powerful over time. And so basically when I was building Shards of Infinity, I just wanted to say, look, I love working on Ascension, I love building new Ascension expansions, but if I were going to start today as a totally new thing, given what we know and how much we've learned about deck building games and how many years have gone by, what would I build? And that was this game. And it's like really fun, really fast, developed for high-level competitive play, and it's only $20 actually. You can get 4-player characters, all of the character cards, everything you see for just $20, which is basically one of the best deals you're going to get out there on a deck building game. To have 4 players play the whole experience for $20.
Yeah, so, and one that's unique.
Yeah.
But apparently you just can't have enough and just let it sit there.
No.
You decided to do a little bit more.
I did, you're right. That's right. So this is not actually out yet, and so I haven't been showing this to many people, but you guys are going to get to see it first. We have an expansion coming, and the expansion is called Relics of the Future. Okay. It's going to be $9.99. It's coming out in October, and it shuffles right into the main deck. But one of the cool things is these characters, they look super cool, right? They have like their own personality. This one's one of my favorites. This one's one of my favorites. But they actually are all functionally identical in the base game. They all have the same powers. They're just for looks. But in the expansion, not so much. Every character comes with 2 relics. And those relics, and why we call it Relics of the Future, there are 2 possible futures you could go down. Maybe you're going to be an aggressive warrior, maybe you're going to be a defensive trickster. There's a lot of different ways you can go. So when you get to 10 mastery, it's kind of midway through the game, a little early bit, you get to pick one of the 2 relics, and then you acquire that relic and put it in your deck. And the other one will not be used that entire game. So you get to choose your path. And so one of the things that's interesting about this, like strategically, I don't know how many games you played where you have a different starting position than your opponent.
I've played many a game.
And typically, 2 things happen. One is they are horribly unbalanced, which is always a challenge. Or 2 is you kind of feel a little bit railroaded. If you play that game the first time, the second time, maybe the 6th time, it's still fun. But after a while, it's like, oh, well, I have this character. That means
there's plenty of games when you think that, oh, I'm in the disadvantaged spot.
Right. And I have to play a certain way.
Some people, yeah. But so, this seems you actually choose midway for that.
Exactly. So that makes it so there's a lot more strategic options. It's a lot easier to balance, and there's more fairness between them. And so I think I was able to get through the idea of having unique cards without it being this sort of broken, kind of railroaded kind of experience.
Oh, and personally, I'm also, a little thing I always love is story.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's you said future artifacts, and if you look at the art, we'll show a picture up.
Yeah.
But they're just slightly different, so it makes that sense of that future alternate timeline.
Exactly.
Which I really like the bubble or blades here.
Yes, exactly. So it's the same character, and it's just like maybe you're this person, maybe you're this person, and you can see them coming. Everybody can see them coming until you have to make that fateful choice.
Which is really nice, especially in a deck building game where you might, depending on the cards that come out or how your opponent buys cards, you may become the defensive person when you're usually the aggro guy.
Exactly. And we really tried to do a ton with this. For only $9.99, not only do you get 2 relics for every character, another 20-something cards to shuffle in the deck that are all new with cool powers and crazy stuff. But also, we added a bunch of new variant rules. There's rules for solo play, which are really interesting and challenging. There's rules for 2v2. There's rules for a 3-player bloodbath kind of thing.
Oh, I love the bloodbath.
It's really fun, and we have rules for like drafting the relic cards and auctioning stuff, and so there's like a ton of alternate ways to play that we built out for people so that you can just continue to play Shards for months and years to come, and it's always different.
So you said that this is definitely a bit more competitive, and do you really have a big tournament scene in mind for this?
Well, we just launched the game, so there's not a tournament scene yet. We actually are going to be having a big tournament tomorrow, which will be the first big tournament we've ever had for Shards. So I'm actually personally like really looking forward to seeing what that looks like and how people going to discover stuff that I haven't seen. Are they going to play things differently, and then I want to beat the best players to show them what's up.
And definitely curious to see if a lot of the people, like you've mentioned, a lot of the champions or close to champions of the Ascension are currently in the tournament. But will we see some of those players come over to here as well?
Yeah, some of them I know are big fans of Shards, and they're going to be playing in the tournament tomorrow. So I'm curious to see if their skill level transfers over and they get to play. Yeah,
definitely to see, because as you said, there's not many offensive or I guess take that cards would be the better phrase in Ascension.
Right.
And how are they going to adapt to that in this kind of game?
Exactly. It definitely shifts things up. And in a 2-player game, it's just, I think this is actually a better 2-player competitive game than Ascension. And I love Ascension, and I built it for competitive play. But I think this one, if you're into that sort of thing, this is definitely the game for you.
Forgive me, I don't know if you said it already. When is the expansion?
The expansion comes out in October.
Okay.
$9.99, Relics of the Future.
Well, we have another print for some of us who missed the base set.
Yes, it's coming in September. So we'll have another print.
So you'll have just a chance to mess around with the base before you go into the future.
Exactly, that's right.
Finally, you still have a bit more paper to show us, but maybe not exactly a game.
Yes, that's right, as has magically appeared on the screen. This is my new book called Think Like a Game Designer. It's something I'm like super proud of. I've been working on it for years. I've been in the game industry making a living for 20 years now, and I took the lessons that I learned, as well as I did interviews with a lot of the top designers out there, Richard Garfield, Paul Peterson, Mike Selinker, tons more, to really realize that everybody kind of does things in sort of the same way, that there's a step-by-step process for how we create games and how we build stuff. And I wrote that down into this book as a way that people can follow. The book has exercises. It's got a clear thing that defines not only the process of making games, but the psychology, right? For people that are out there, a lot of us that are passionate about games, I get that all the time when I come to Gen Con. They're like, oh, how did you come up with these ideas? Or I could never do that. And I'm here to tell you, like, yes, you can, right? It's just about being able to overcome your fears and go through this step-by-step process. Like, yes, your ideas are going to suck when you start. The first game you test is not going to work. That's true for me even now, 20 years later. But you test it, you figure out what works and what doesn't, you refine it, and you go to the next step. And so this book walks you through that, everything from your initial idea, I don't know what I'm going to do to start, all the way to I want to get published or I want to get hired by a game company. It's all in this book.
So this is less of just some multiple people's stories of like how they made the game, but really how someone could take this book so they can actually walk the path themselves.
Yes, there's literally exercises at the end of a bunch of the chapters, and if you do all the exercises, you're a game designer, full stop. And so it's something that I'll give you a little bit of backstory if that's all right.
Oh, of course.
I was a Magic Pro player, and so I was always good at playing games. But when I first got hired to design games, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't consider myself to be a creative person at all, and I actually like researched and read books and talked to people and like figured it out slowly over time, with some awkward mistakes along the way for sure. And so I want to like make that process easier for other people, that it's like it is a learnable process. It's not like a magic, I'm a creative person or I'm not a creative person. It's a way of thinking about new problems that gets you from step A to step B to step C. And so that I just want other people to be able to do the same kind of thing, because when I went to law school instead of after my Magic career, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Because that's like,
you are such a blue mage, aren't you?
Yeah. And it was what you know, my parents were both lawyers. It was like this thing that, like, you know, you got to get serious and have that career. And I was miserable. And I didn't think that, like, gaming could really be a career for me. And I had more evidence than most at that point. But I want to, like, send the message with this book and with these tips that anybody can do this, and that following your passion, wherever you lead, right? Maybe you won't be a game designer. Maybe you'll be reporting. Maybe you'll be writing articles. Maybe you'll be producing. But, like, moving yourself into a world where you are passionate and you are living your passion is game-changing. It's, like, the way to lead an inspiring life. And, like, I wrote this book to try to help people do that. And so it's not coming out. It's not even out yet. It's coming out on September 9th.
Okay.
But if you want it, I don't know when this is going to go live or if this is live, but...
it's not live right now, but it will hopefully shortly after we're recording this.
So if you're interested in this stuff at all, not even whether you care about my book, there's a Humble Bundle going on right now. And for those that don't know, Humble Bundle is a charity organization. You can go online, just Google Humble Bundle, and you can donate any amount of money you want, and then they give you free stuff. And the money all goes to charity. Or a big portion of it goes to charity.
You actually get to decide how the...
Yeah, you can decide how you split it,
really
right?
cool.
So, and there's a Humble Bundle going on for game design and puzzle craft that started right before Gen Con. It's going to go for another week or so afterwards. So if this gets posted soon enough, you guys can still do this. And you can, for like $1, right, you can get an excerpt from my book. You can get a puzzle design book from Mike Selinker, Girls in Gaming from Elisa Teague. You can see articles and stuff from Richard Garfield, and tons of content that you can just get for almost nothing, and you can give money to charity as a boost. So you can pre-order my book at thinklikeagamedesigner.com or Amazon or whatever, but this other path is something you can get a ton of resources, you can do some good, and so it's something I'm trying to push people to because it's really fantastic.
No, I've done multiple Humble Bundles myself, and it's always a great thing because you can donate to both the developers and the charity in great ways. It really, because a lot of times when people are like, I don't know where my money's going, you know where your money's going.
Yeah.
Everything's there. And this is also great for a lot of people because, especially nowadays, with Kickstarter becoming such a big thing, it's a lot of people can get into board games reasonable well. It's just this would help them maybe get past those fears, as you said, and maybe just know the process and how to get through the testing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you specifically mentioned Kickstarter. I know Monty Cook's book on Kickstarter is in the bundle also. So in addition to making the games, learning how to test, learning what works, learning what doesn't, learning how to sell your game and kickstart your game, it's all on there too. And I don't talk about Kickstarter explicitly in here, but I do talk about how do you make money from game design?
Right.
How do you get published? How do you make stuff happen? And so I know it's scary. Believe me, I know for the people out there, that's scary. You don't think you can do it, but you can, and there's a lot of resources out there right now to help you along the way.
Well, look at the Humble Bundle now. Hopefully this should be airing before it ends for not only an excerpt from your book, but plenty other resources. This book, though, will come out September 9th. You can pre-order it now. Maybe it'll appear on Roll for Crit's book club soon. So until then, this has been Roll for Crit.
Like and subscribe for more Gen Con 2018 coverage.
And enter our contest for a chance to win some Gen Con games in the description down below.